Rain hit the windshield as David's rover bounced across the rocky ground. He had been alone for 3 weeks now, stationed on a quiet planet known only by its code, Xylon 9. Nothing ever happened here. Just dust, wind, and strange animal sounds. At night, his job was simple: watch for seismic activity, scan the minerals, and report back to base. That's it. He never expected anything else. But that changed today. David was heading back to his camp when he saw something strange. His drone camera had picked up heat readings from the canyon's edge. It wasn't animal movement. It was too still, too. Warm and shaped like a person. He stopped the rover and pulled out his binoculars. That's when he saw her. A figure clearly not human was curled up on the ground, her body twitching like she was in pain. Her skin shimmered under the rain like it had a soft glow. Long dark hair clung to her shoulders. Her arms were thin but muscular, and she wore strange armor that looked almost grown, not made. Something was sticking out of her lower back. A sharp black piece of metal. Blood or something close to blood dripped down her side. David's first instinct was fear, but then she looked up and cried out. Her voice wasn't like a scream. It was more like a desperate gasp, a sound that didn't belong to a wild creature. It was a plea. A sound made by someone in real pain. Without thinking, he jumped out of the rover. He ran to her, sliding on the wet rock, heart pounding. As he got closer, she tried to move away, growling softly, but she was too weak. Her eyes wide and golden locked onto his face. She spoke something in a language he couldn't understand. "I'm not going to hurt you," David said quietly. Raising his hands, she didn't understand his words, but she stared at him like she was trying to read his thoughts. He kneeled beside her. The black shard stuck in her back looked like part of a broken machine. It pulsed faintly, like it was alive. He reached toward it slowly, and she let out another gasp, this time softer, less afraid. He paused. "Something's in you," he whispered. "And it's not supposed to be." She nodded once. Just once. Then she tilted her head and made a sharp motion with her hand, a pulling gesture. She wanted him to remove it. David looked at the shard. It was buried deep. "This is going to hurt," he said. She reached up and grabbed his arm, not to stop him, but to hold onto him. He took a deep breath, gripped the shard with both hands, then pulled. The sound she made almost stopped him. It was like a howl and a sob at once, but she didn't let go of him. The shard slid out slowly, black liquid dripping from it. It hissed as it hit the rain-soaked ground. Whatever it was, it wasn't just metal. It moved like it was dying. As soon as the piece was out, she fell back, eyes closing. No, stay awake," David said. He took off his jacket and pressed it against the wound. Her blood was warm, but thicker than human blood. He could feel her body trembling under his hands. The rain kept falling. David looked around. They were exposed. Anything could be watching. He had to get her out of here. With effort, he lifted her into his arms. She was heavier than she looked, but she didn't fight him. Her arms hung loose. She was still breathing, but barely. Back in the rover, he laid her down in the back seat. His hands were shaking, heart racing, and mind spinning with questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? What attacked her? Was she alone? He had so many questions, but one thing was clear: she needed help. And for some reason, she had trusted him. He sped back to the camp, windshield wipers scraping fast. He kept looking in the mirror, watching her. At one point, her eyes opened. She stared at him, then slowly reached out and touched his jacket, now soaked in her blood. Her fingers curled around the fabric. She didn't speak, but something in her eyes said one thing: "Don't leave me." David didn't know what this alien girl was. He didn't know what had hurt her. But whatever she was, whatever she needed, he had just become a part of it. And the strange piece he pulled from her, it was still moving in the corner of the rover. Floor. *. David didn't sleep that night. He sat beside the alien girl in his small camp shelter, checking her breathing every few minutes. Her skin was pale, glowing dimly in the dark. She had fallen unconscious hours ago. He had cleaned the wound as best he could, using water and bandages from his kit. The bleeding had stopped, but her body twitched now and then, like she was fighting. Something inside. He kept the strange black shard in a sealed box. He didn't trust it. Even now, it moved a little like it was alive, every time he looked at it. He felt cold. In the morning, she opened her eyes again. David was still sitting beside her. She blinked slowly, confused at first. Then she saw him, and something in her body relaxed. She didn't try to run or attack. She simply watched him. "I'm David," he said softly. "Can you understand me?" She didn't answer, but she studied his mouth like she was trying to match words to sounds. Then, slowly, she pointed to herself. "Sarah," she said. Her voice was soft, breathy. She spoke like it was hard to form the words. "Sarah," David repeated. "That's your name?" She nodded. He smiled. "Good. That's good." She looked around, frowning slightly at the shelter walls, the strange equipment, the hum of the power cell. Then her golden eyes locked on the sealed box. When David noticed her stare, he followed her gaze. "The thing I pulled from you?" he asked. She gave a sharp nod. Then she spoke a long, strange word in her language and pointed at her back. Then again at the box. David opened the box carefully and showed her the shard, still twitching slightly. Sarah flinched. She reached out and placed her hand just above it, but didn't touch it. She was afraid. David asked, "What is it?" Sarah looked at him, then closed her hand in a tight fist. Then she touched her own chest and shook her head. "No, inside you?" he guessed. "It shouldn't be inside you." She nodded again, slowly. She made another motion with her hands. A circle, then a sharp break through the circle with her fingers. "Something broke?" David asked. Sarah pointed outside. Then up toward the sky. David followed her gesture. "Did something crash?" Her eyes lit up a little. "That was it." David stood. He moved to the scanner panel and pulled up the last few days of satellite records. He hadn't noticed it before. He had been too distracted. But now he saw it. There was a strange burst of heat, a high spike, just beyond the canyon, maybe a day's hike out. Something had hit the ground hard 2 days ago. David turned back to Sarah. "That's where it happened, isn't it?" Sarah nodded. Then she pointed at the box again, and then at her own stomach. He frowned. "There's more?" She looked at him carefully. Then she slowly lifted her shirt, just slightly, revealing her smooth stomach. It looked normal, but David saw small thin lines running across the skin. Not scars. Not veins. Almost like glowing veins of silver light, spreading slowly. Something was still inside her. David stepped back, stunned. "Oh no," he whispered. "You've got more of that thing inside you." Sarah nodded once and then winced in pain. Moved quickly and helped her lie down again. His hands trembled. The black shard had looked mechanical, but also alive. And now more of it was inside her, spreading. If he didn't do something soon, she could die. But how was he supposed to help? He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't trained for alien life forms. But he was the only one here. He looked at her. Her hand gripped his arm tightly now, as if begging him not to leave her alone. "I'll help," he whispered. "I promise." She gave a weak nod. Later that day, David started preparing for a trip. If that crash site held answers or more pieces of this strange machine, he had to go there. Maybe he'd find out what it was. Maybe he'd even find a way to stop it from growing inside her. He packed supplies, water, and tools. Sarah sat up slowly. She was weak but determined. When he tried to tell her to rest, she pointed to herself, then to him, then to the door. She was going with him. "No," David said. "You need to rest." But she shook her head firmly. She placed her hand on her chest, then pointed forward. "This is mine," she was saying. "I have to face it," David sighed. "You're stubborn, you know that?" Sierra tilted her head. A small smile touched her lips just for a second. Then they both looked at the sealed box. Inside, the shard moved again. But this time, it pulsed faster, almost like it could sense something near. The sky was gray when David and Sierra left camp. The wind was cold, and sharp dust blew across the rocks. David drove the rover while Sierra sat beside him, wrapped in a blanket. Her body was still weak, but she didn't complain. Her golden eyes stayed fixed on the horizon. Neither of them spoke much. The land ahead was rough, jagged cliffs and deep cracks in the earth. David checked the scanner again. The crash site wasn't far. But something strange was happening on the screen. "There's energy out there," David said. "Too strong for a normal wreck." Sierra looked at the screen. Her lips pressed into a tight line. She knew something was wrong too. An hour later, they reached the edge of the crash zone. What David saw made his heart stop. It wasn't just a crashed ship. It was a black, broken pod, sharp metal like blades sticking out in all directions. The whole thing pulsed with a dull red light, like a heartbeat. Strange black roots had grown from the pod into the ground. They moved slowly, like they were alive. The crash had carved a trench into the earth, and the metal had fused with the rocks around it. David stepped out slowly. He could feel the air buzzing. Sierra followed, walking carefully. Her body shook a little, but she kept going. They approached the wreck together. David held up his scanner. It screamed with warnings. Radiation, power spikes, organic metallic fusion. "This thing isn't just a ship," David said. "It's something else." Sierra pointed toward the center of the wreck. There, half buried in the debris, was a glass-like chamber. Inside it floated more of those black shards, but these were bigger, longer, and pulsing fast. David stared. "That's what's inside you, isn't it?" Sierra gave a small nod. Her hand moved to her stomach again. Suddenly, the shard inside David's sealed box back in the rover reacted. David's cum buzzed. He checked it. The shard in the rover was moving violently now, almost like it wanted to escape. David turned to Sierra. "They're calling to each other." Sierra looked worried. She backed away from the pod, eyes wide. Then the sound came, a low, humming noise like machines waking up. The ground shook beneath their feet. The black roots twitched. David grabbed her arm. "We have to go, now." But it was too late. Something moved inside the wreckage. A long, thin limb pushed free from the broken pod. It was metal, but jointed like bone. Then another arm followed. A head rose, neck smooth and faceless. It wasn't a ship. It was a creature, and it had just woken up. Sierra froze. David pulled her behind a rock and crouched down. The machine creature stood tall, its limbs clicking into place. Pieces of black metal floated behind it, sticking to its back like wings. It didn't have eyes, but it turned slowly, as if searching for something. And then it stopped. It faced their direction. David whispered, "It knows we're here." Sierra breathed fast. She gripped her side. Those silver lines on her skin were glowing brighter now. The creature stepped forward. David grabbed his plasma cutter. It wasn't a weapon, but it was all he had. Sierra stood up. David hissed, "What are you doing?" She raised her arms, stepping into view. The creature paused. Sierra spoke in her own language, sharp and fast words. She shouted at the thing. Her voice was weak but filled with fury. The creature tilted its head. Then it moved closer. Sierra staggered. David rushed to her side. He held her steady, unsure what she was trying to do. And then she dropped to one knee and pressed her palm to the ground. Light spread from her hand, soft, golden light that flowed across the rocks toward the black roots. As soon as the light touched the roots, they hissed and pulled back. The creature screeched a horrible sound that cut through the air like knives. David looked at her in shock. "What did you do?" Sira didn't answer. Her skin was glowing brighter. The silver veins now reached her neck. She was burning up. The machine stepped back, but only for a moment. Then it charged. David pulled Sira behind the rover and fired. The plasma cutter. The beam cut across the creature's side. It didn't slow down. But then, Sira did something David didn't expect. She held out her arm, and the shard inside her pushed to the surface, glowing hot. With a scream, she tore it from her own body and flung it at the machine. The shard hit the creature's chest and stuck there. The machine stopped. Its body twitched, arms locking up. The red light inside it turned white, then went dark. It fell. Sira collapsed. David caught her just before she hit the ground. She was burning with fever. Her breathing was fast. "Stay with me," he said. "Sira, stay awake." She blinked up at him. Then whispered something. David leaned close. She said, "More." "Inside." And then she passed out. David looked down at her, and at the strange lines of light, still moving across her skin. This wasn't over, not even close. David drove. Fast. The rover jumped over rocks and cut through dust as the sun began to fall behind the cliffs. Sira lay beside him, half-conscious, sweat on her face. Her skin glowed with a faint silver light, and the strange lines running through her body had grown thicker. David kept checking her pulse. Still there, but faint. The shard she had pulled from herself now lay sealed in a new container. It didn't move, whatever it was. Sira had used it to stop the machine at the crash site, but there was more inside her. David's hands tightened on the wheel. He had no plan, only fear. He had sent an emergency signal to the orbital base station. But they were days away. If she didn't get help soon, she wouldn't last that long. Back at camp, he carried her into the shelter. She was burning up now. He laid her down gently, wiped her forehead with a cold cloth, and grabbed his scanner. He needed to understand what was happening inside her. The scanner pinned. The silver lines in her body weren't just energy, they were growing. Living. They had formed a pattern, branches, like roots, reaching through her organs, wrapping around her bones. They were part of her now. "No," David whispered. "This thing's taking over." He grabbed the container with the second shard, held it up. This thing wasn't just inside her. It was changing her. But then, something strange happened. Sira's body jerked, and her hand snapped forward, grabbing David's wrist. Her eyes shot open, glowing. Not gold, now white and silver. She looked right at him. Her lips moved slowly. "Help me, get it out." He froze. She was awake, but not fully in control. Her voice sounded like two people speaking at once, her own and something deeper. David whispered, "How?" "I don't know how to get it out." Sira's eyes softened for a moment. Then she looked at his equipment. She pointed weakly at the tool shelf. David followed her finger. There, in the corner, was a deep scan injector normally used for mineral samples. It had small claw-like arms, meant for removing dense core fragments. "No," David said. "That's not made for—" She gripped his arm tighter. "Please." David's hand shook. He powered on the device. The scanner lit up and targeted the deepest point of the infection. It wasn't in her chest anymore. It had moved near her spine. He stared at the screen. "If I mess this up, it could paralyze you, or worse." Sira didn't blink. Her hand never let go. David steadied his breath. He cleaned the injector, connected it to the scanner, and moved beside her. He placed one hand on her shoulder. "Just hold on," he said. The machine buzzed and lowered its claw-like arms. They moved slowly, following the scan map. David winced as the injector pierced the skin near her lower back. Sira arched in pain but didn't cry out. Her teeth clenched tight. The claws went deeper and deeper. Then they stopped, locked onto something. David pressed the control. There was a sharp click, and the claws pulled out another shard. But this one was different. It wasn't black. It was white and glowing. David dropped it into a sealed case. The glow inside it moved like fog in a bottle. Sierra gasped. Then her body went still. For a terrifying second, David thought she had died. Then she breathed in deep and color returned to her cheeks. The silver veins faded. Her body stopped shaking. He knelt beside her, holding her hand. "You're okay," he whispered. "I think you're okay." Sierra opened her eyes and smiled. Not weakly, but truly. "I feel lighter," she said, her voice clear again. David sat back, relief flooding his chest, but as he turned toward the case that held the glowing shard, he saw something new. The white shard was not like the others. It pulsed gently, and it wasn't evil. It felt calm, pure. Sierra sat up slowly, then reached out and placed her hand against the case. "It protects," she said quietly. "Not like others." David blinked. "Wait, this one. It's not part of the infection?" Sarah shook her head. "Two kinds, one dark, one light. I hold both." David looked at her. "Then why is the dark one growing inside you?" Her eyes lowered. "Not by choice." She touched her chest. "It was sent to use me as vessel." David swallowed. "A weapon." She nodded. "I'm just the shell," she whispered. "But this," she pointed at the white shard, "this is mine." David felt a cold chill. Something had sent the black shards, but something else had given her the white one. One tried to control her. The other was fighting back. Sierra looked up at him. "Eyes serious. "More will come," she said, "and not just machines." David stepped back. "You mean more aliens?" Sierra nodded. Slowly. And then she said something that made his blood run cold. "They're already here." David didn't speak for a full minute. Sierra's words echoed in his mind. "They're already here." He stared at her, trying to understand. The black shard, the machine creature, the crash. Now she was saying more of them had come. He whispered, "Who's here? What do they want?" Sierra sat up straighter. Her strength was returning, but her face was serious now. Her eyes no longer glowed, but there was a sharpness in them, like someone who had seen war. "They follow the dark," she sighed. "The black core, the hive." David leaned forward. "Hive, like a group?" Sierra nodded. "They find hosts, not just machines. People, creatures, planets." David felt cold. "They're spreading." "Yes." He looked at the sealed black shard. Even now in its container, it twitched softly. "How do we stop them?" Sierra looked down at the glowing white shard beside it. "This fights back. It was made long ago, by my kind." She touched the case gently. "We failed to stop the hive. They found us. They broke through. Only a few of us escaped. I ran, but they followed." David's chest tightened. "So that thing inside you, it was planted?" Sierra nodded. "Yes, I was meant to be a delivery. Carry the dark to new worlds, quietly. But the white one, it protected you?" "Yes, it delayed the takeover. Kept me awake. Gave me time to find help." David blinked. "And I was the help?" Sierra gave a small smile. "You pulled it out. You stopped the first one. You listened." David ran a hand through his hair. "This is too big. I need to call for more help. Earth, ships, soldiers." Sierra grabbed his hand. "No, not yet." "Why not?" She looked at him with deep, serious eyes. "If they see soldiers, the hive will move faster, spread, hide." David paused. "Then what do we do?" Sierra stood slowly. "We find the nest." David's blood went cold. "There's a nest?" "Yes, the crash site was not the only one. I felt it. More landed. Near the mountains. They're building something big." David turned toward his maps. He pulled up satellite images. 2 large heat spikes had appeared overnight. Near the west ridgeline, not natural. Not rock or sun. Structures. He looked at her. You're right. Sarah's voice was calm but firm. If we destroy it now before it grows, we have a chance. If not, your world will fall next. David stared at the glowing shard. Will that help us? Sarah nodded. It burns the hive. David grabbed his pack. Then let's burn them. They traveled all night. The rover climbed rocky slopes and pushed through thick fog. In the distance, the ridgeline stood like broken teeth, sharp and silent. But deep inside the cracks, something pulsed. The air grew warm, then too warm. Machines hummed under the ground. David parked the rover just before the slope dipped down. Into the valley, they stood at the edge and saw it. A nest black and tall like a tower made from bones and metal. Strange dark vines ran from its base into the soil, pulsing with red light. Floating above it were shards like the one David had pulled from Sarah, but bigger. They spun slowly in the air like they were alive. David's mouth went dry. That's not a ship. Sarah shook her head. It's a cedar. It plants the hive, makes more. David studied the structure. Can we destroy it? Sarah pointed at the glowing shard in his pack. Get close. Place it inside. It will wake the light. David frowned. Will that be enough? Sarah looked at the sky. It must be. They climbed down the slope together, moving between the rocks, but they weren't alone. A low screech echoed across the valley. Figures moved near the base of the tower, tall, dark, and wrong. Not machines, not fully. David froze. They looked like people. But their arms were too long, their heads twisted too far. And their eyes, when they opened, were black and empty. Sarah pulled him behind a rock. Hosts, she whispered. Taken. Not dead, but not alive. David's voice was low. Are they human? Sarah hesitated. Some, maybe, others from other stars. David felt sick. We have to stop this. They waited until the patrols passed. Then they ran. Stone to stone. Shadow to shadow. They reached the tower's base. It hummed like it had a heart. Sarah held out the white shard. It must go into the root core, underneath. David took it carefully. And you? I'll cover you. He stared into her eyes. If I don't make it, you will. David nodded. Then ran. He slipped into a crack at the tower's base and climbed down. Heat hit him like fire. Inside, the walls pulsed alive and wet. The root core was at the center. A black heart, beating. Feeding everything. David raised the glowing shard. The hive reacted. The walls screamed. And all hell broke loose. Asterisk. The moment David lifted the white shard above the root core, the entire tower shook. The black heart pulsed faster, and the walls around him screamed with a horrible sound like metal being torn apart and voices crying at once. Red lights exploded through the vines. The air turned hot. The roots inside the tower twisted and lashed, like they knew he was there. David held the shard tight. It burned in his hand, but not painfully. It was warm, like sunlight. Alive. He stepped forward and shoved it deep into the pulsing heart. For a second, nothing happened. Then light exploded from the center. White and gold light burst from the shard, spreading in every direction. It didn't just burn, it pushed. The red glow vanished as the light flooded through the black vines, cutting them off. David covered his face as the energy passed through his body. He felt his heart stop for a beat. Then everything went quiet. No screams. No movement. Just stillness. He opened his eyes. The heart was gone, burned away. The vines around him had turned to ash. The hive was dead. David stumbled back toward the exit. Smoke filled the cracks in the tower. The walls crumbled behind him. He ran faster, lungs aching. Outside, Sarah waited. She stood with a weapon in hand, one she had pulled from the old wreckage, ready to fight. But she didn't have to. The hive creatures were already falling, one by one, their bodies twitching. As the dark energy inside them faded, they were no longer controlled. Some cried out. Others collapsed in silence. When David reached her, she rushed to catch him. He fell to his knees, coughing. "It's done," he said. "I put it in the core." Sarah smiled with tears in her eyes. "You did it." The ground trembled beneath them. The hive tower cracked. A deep rumble echoed through the valley. "Come on," David said. "Time to go." They ran behind them. The tower collapsed. The entire nest burned in white light until there was nothing left but dust and silence. 3 days later, David sat on a rock near his camp, staring at the sky. He had received a signal. A rescue ship was coming soon. Sarah sat beside him, her skin healthy again. The silver lines in her body had faded. The infection was gone, but something had changed. She was quiet now, not afraid, just thoughtful. David looked at her. "What happens now?" She looked up at the stars. "I return to the stars. Find the others. Tell them we still have hope." David nodded slowly. "And Earth?" Sarah turned to him. "Safe, for now. But they'll try again, somewhere." David picked up the empty shard container. The white one had faded away, turned to dust after the hive died. "Is it really over?" he asked. Sarah smiled gently. "For me, yes. For you, your world still needs protectors." David looked at her. "Then stay. Help us." She paused, then reached out and touched his chest softly. "You helped me," she whispered. "I will always come. When your world needs me again." She stood and walked toward the rising ship in the sky. David watched as it lowered. She turned one last time, her golden eyes shining. "You pulled something dark from me," she said. "But you also gave something back." He blinked. "What?" "Trust." Then she was gone. The ship lifted, vanished into the clouds. David stood there, hand over his heart, watching the empty sky. Somewhere deep in space, the hive still lingered. But now, they knew someone would fight back, and he would be ready. Always.